Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission study session. It is presently 6:30. I'd like to begin by thanking the commissioners for their service. We will first start with discussing regular agenda items. That takes us to item C1. Consider approval of the July 10th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners, any?
I do have one clarification.
Sure.
It's on page 3 of this packet, and it's because I remember I did not ask this question well at the time, but what I was asking was why the station area was listed as strengthen instead of transform, and the answer that I understood was that even though the station area looks similar to the other ones that are transformed, it has had more background work done to it. It has a PD, it has planning and zoning, and so even though it still has a lot of work to do, that was the answer to that. That was why it was listed as strengthen instead of transform. Now I do want to point out, and I don't know, just want to, I guess, make sure that it's being consistent, because as I was looking through this, just to get my thoughts together, in that packet on page 85 and page 215, there's a step map that shows exactly what I'm saying. It shows the station area as listed as strengthened. But I just happened to notice that in the public presentation last time on page 243, the map showed the station area as transformed. It was two different maps, and that was the only difference. So we actually had the station area listed two different ways. So I just, Marcos, I just want to just point that out, maybe just make sure whichever one is supposed to be correct.
We can look at that.
I just happened to notice that today.
Okay, yeah, we can
Okay.
definitely.
Yeah.
We'll make sure that that's corrected, and then all of this is being recorded, so we'll double check the
Okay.
the recordings and everything, and make sure that this is reflected correctly.
Okay, thank
No
you.
problem.
Thank you for that catch. Anyone else with typos, corrections, edits? All right. Seeing none, we'll move to item C2. Consider the request for a final plat approval of Elm Branch Block 1, lots 1 through 42 and 43X located at 12877 Josie Lane, and take appropriate action. All right. Who'll be presenting this?
Sarah. Any questions on this item? The final plat for 42 townhome lots.
I have a question.
It came to us up before, I think we talked a little, not the final plat, but
Yeah,
There were
the
some
zoning and the detailed site plan were approved in 2022.
Does the final plat, does it address anything about security or the project? In other words, the height of the fencing or the entrances, access to parking areas? Question mark.
Sure, those items were addressed with the site plan that was approved in 2022, and a copy of that is in the packet. The final plat just outlines the property boundaries and any easements that are needed for development. So there will be a fence along the eastern side of the property, and then the site plan, which would be just after the plat in the packet, will show you where all the entrances and the parking are located.
One of the reasons I'm asking is because recently, out on the west side in the new apartments, they have had a mass of car burglaries in the structured parking garages. And what they have discovered in that structured parking, that there's hiding places for people inside the parking unless there's adequate lighting or cameras or things like that. And I'm wondering, question, if it's appropriate for someone, the planning and zoning people, to make sure that things like that are addressed in these plans before they're finalized, because it's been an issue with the new apartment complexes. I was in a recent study session meeting at City Council, and there was literally 4 apartment management teams. They're fixing to get put into the crime prevention program that the city has for apartment. And they didn't want to be put in the program. But taken from that is there something planning and zoning can look at, can look to, can coordinate with other departments in the city to make sure when these places are built, that we do have adequate security for the residents.
Yeah, those are good questions, and absolutely, I think for future developments, absolutely. That I mean, that's really part of what this commission needs to do. Also, is we need to be looking at those specific items as well. For this particular item, I know this is it's a townhome development. They don't have a parking garage. They don't have like a parking structure. These all have individual garages. And this is already, I mean, the building permits are about to be pulled for this one. So this one, I mean, we wouldn't be able to make any adjustments.
Is there any surface parking at all for the, I haven't looked at it. I'm just throwing up
Oh,
the security
right.
issue.
Yeah, there is some surface parking.
Yeah, there should only be just parallel. There should be some parallel parking spots along. The name of that road is Red Hawk Drive. Now those are going to be very visible, obviously, to the adjacent properties that are there. I believe that's Marshall's on the other side of that strip
Right.
mall area. But that is really the only surface parking that's in that location besides
Everything else is garage.
everything else is garage.
Well,
Right.
Because our city's located in the center of the metroplex, close to the freeways, I think in future years, security in those kinds of projects, especially on the east side, where there will be future issues like that, security is going to be a really big deal.
Absolutely. No, I think as staff, I mean, as we get projects that come in, we'll definitely, keep that as a priority point to talk about also as well. That shouldn't be a problem to try to ensure, especially when we work with the developers. If that is an issue that we're having here in the city, that's something that we want to try to address.
So
All right,
this-
thank you. You answered my
This
question.
isn't gated or anything like
No,
that.
sir.
no?
Will there be some sort of, I mean, I'm asking definitely a newbie question, but will there be some sort of wall, retaining wall support between Marshall's Barbecue and like the whole shopping center and
Right.
These are parking
the
spots,
townhomes
three,
themselves?
three,
Is it
one,
separated out? Okay.
No,
They'll
there's
share parking lot.
They'll share
space.
that.
Okay.
Absolutely. Actually, we have another development that's in the works
Spaces
that
per
hasn't
townhome.
official. It's in the review at this point right now.
It's just,
Um,
what is this, 4 here, 4
if
there,
it
3,
continues
3,
down
4.
that path, we'll be bringing
3, 2
that
units.
development to you guys, and that's directly adjacent to this
Same.
property. Basically, where that
That's going to be
that
important
strip
for
center is.
future projects.
And then another, just an odd,
Security.
curious question. Who is the owner of the property? Is the land owned, is this something Farmers Branch? Who's the owner?
The townhome site? No, it's privately owned.
Was it, okay,
Privately owned.
Yeah.
okay, okay, I saw something, I thought it sounded like this, somehow the city owned the land,
Oh, no.
but okay, that's fine.
What you may have been thinking about was the conversation that was held 2 weeks ago where Allison was talking about this very development as one where the city served as a liaison to help make the previous property owner aware of the opportunities for redevelopment.
Got it.
Which is one of the great things that our economic development folks do. And, as Marcus mentioned, that there's also hopefully future development in this area, as we saw in the comprehensive plan. This Four Corners area is one that's of heightened interest
Right.
to receive that attention. So, yeah, I appreciate those questions.
Okay, definitely green questions.
Yeah, which all questions are good questions for sure.
What's their timeline? Anybody know how long it's going to take them to? I think they're ready to pull permits after this, right? So then,
They've applied for building permits. Getting the property platted is a requirement for
Sure.
us to be able to issue them, but they're ready to move.
so they'll be done like in 12 months or?
I've heard 9 to 12.
And the applicant will be here as well tonight, so we can.
Okay, I'll ask.
That was a question I had.
I did
And just a recollection too, plats as designated by the 86th Texas legislature have this shot clock. And so there's always like a timeline around a plat, and that's a kind of a state designation based off that 2019 law from the 86th legislature. So kind of a unique thing to plats as differentiated from other types of things that we review. I know that gets a bit wonky, but it's just good to keep in mind. Any further questions? Thanks for letting us know the applicant will be here. That's always helpful. All right, that will take us then to item C3. And as I stated before, for this item, I will actually recuse myself because I am an employee of Dallas College and this plat does mention them. So actually in honoring that, even for this discussion and study session, I'm going to step outside. I will turn it over to our Vice Chair, Roger, who will lead you through this. Because it's an open session, we have to keep the door open because it's an open meeting. But I'm just going to take myself down the hall, and if someone would fetch me when you're ready for the next session, I will do that. That way I don't influence the conversation in any way.
This is C2, is that what you said?
C3. C3.
I gotta find it. So something's
Oh,
going
it
on.
should be on the second page, Roger. Second page. There you go. This one right there.
It's the request for final plat. Oh.
Mhm.
Approval of Brookhaven College Lot 1, Block 1, 3939 Valley View Lane, and take appropriate action.
Any questions on this one? It's a final plat. They're just relocating a few easements related to the early college center.
Yeah, I remember us talking about this. They were moving easements since we last talked, or?
The original plat for Brookhaven College showed easements at a certain location. After they did the site plan for the early college center, they had to relocate a few.
Okay.
So that's the purpose of this plat.
Does this have any impact on the trails that go around it or the connectivity across to Truvia?
No, it's specific to water easements.
Okay, thank you.
Do we look at or consider drainage, surface water drainage issues on these? Do they have did they have a plan?
You want me? Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Sure, definitely. That is evaluated at the site plan stage. So for this development, the site plan was approved in 2021. And for any new development, we require a drainage plan and utility plan. And our public works team reviews that. Any other questions? I think we're gonna be.
All, thank you, Roger, especially.
C3, okay.
So with the conclusion of that, that concludes our study session, right? So we are, oh, sorry, apologies, heading back. I'm out of practice, clearly, after 2 weeks. Takes us back to item 8.2, discuss planning and zoning commission landscaping subcommittee. So I did watch the recording last time, so it's my understanding we have a volunteer. Thank you very much. I think the next question would be to inquire if anyone else is interested in serving in this capacity from our commission. The requirements, as I understand it, is that we have we do not meet quorum, so we need to make sure that we're underneath that. So 3 or fewer individuals to serve in that capacity on a subcommittee. And then if I also understand correctly, our next order of business would be to identify the goals of this subcommittee. And otherwise, why are we creating this thing in the first place? You know, what's the necessary parameters and what do we hope that they accomplish and bring back to us as the commission?
And as I recall from our last meeting, this was not anything that we needed to take downstairs for voting. We could all handle that here in study session.
Yes, sir.
And my recollection was that Heidi had volunteered to be at least our one commissioner. Certainly if there's other commissioners that want to participate, we could be open to that. And I had suggested that Linda Bertle be considered because she was a previous commissioner here, is very knowledgeable in landscaping. So I recommended the 2 of them and maybe a third person that they might know that could be beneficial to help work with the city on this landscape and tree ordinance. and report back to us as a full commission on a regular basis, whatever we decide. If that's every 2 weeks or a month or whatever.
And just to provide some context, because I see you with a questioning look on your face, the way this came about is that we do have a former commissioner, Linda Bertle, who had been working on this. And in fact, the city has been working on these two ordinances for
A while.
a while. Depending on how you count it, with some early conversations approaching maybe a decade. And so, with her knowledge and expertise and past experience in working through it, there are some specific detail-oriented aspects of both of these ordinances that we wanted to ensure received some consultation, both from current residents, like that, and given her experience. She also happens to be a master gardener and a master naturalist, as I understand it. And so one of the key elements of both of these plans is really thinking about it from the standpoint of maintenance, sustainability. If we do have these as ordinances, we don't want to have an undue burden on our residents. And at the same time, we want to preserve the character of Farmers Branch as a city and a park. And so finding that balance. And one of the expertises that she brings to the table is her extensive knowledge of native plants, species that do well, and very particular aspects. If you go back and watch the tapes, you're going to see her consistently question our builders, our developers about the radius, away from structures, the, maintenance, etc. And so that level of detail and consultation is what we hope to bring to this, so that the way that we structure and write the ordinance doesn't essentially write us into a corner or write us into something that is not going to produce a sustainable atmosphere and environmental sphere, at least as I understand it. So others can add to that or clarify if
I
I've
think
missed
just that the tendency of a builder is to want to put something that grows fast, because they'll be gone in 5 or 10 years, but then they're picking trees that grow way too big for the area, and they create problems for the owners. So it was just always like,
Whatever
put
they can get
something that
hold of.
makes sense, and that was her sort of her mantra.
Yeah.
Let's
plant a 100-year tree or a 50 or an 80-year tree, not a 2-year tree,
Right.
sort of thing. So we certainly appreciate you volunteering in that capacity, especially as a new person. That
I'm
will
also
be
kind of a
fantastic.
landscape nut myself, so
Excellent.
Landscape committee, okay, do it.
And to be clear, they are two separate ordinances, but there is some overlay. And you'll find out a lot more, I'm sure, about that, serving in that capacity. Any other individuals who are interested in serving, we don't have to have more than one. I just want to make sure that everyone has an opportunity to participate if that's of interest to them. I'm not seeing any hands shoot up. I also teach, and I know what that looks like when a student is eager.
And I can always modify it, right? If they need some additional help or something, then one of us can step up and pitch in if there's more help needed.
Correct.
But as long as we have 3 or less commissioners, we should be able to do it.
Yes, then we're in compliance. We want to make sure we comply by the Open Records Meetings Act and things like that. So, thank you.
Is there already a board existing, or is this
This is a new
creating a
thing.
brand new
It's a
board?
subcommittee.
It's
New
a
thing.
subcommittee.
But I mean, it's just an important distinction.
Mhm. Thank you for that clarification.
Yeah.
And no, nothing currently is in existence. Hence why we are, working collaboratively right now to,
Well, I think
produce that.
just to back up, maybe the city can help us a little bit, but I recall us watching some presentations of what some of the other cities are doing around us, how restrictive theirs may be or not restrictive theirs may be. So I don't know if that would be helpful to Heidi, or if there's something changed from that the city's done, or it's just
No,
been sitting on the sidelines waiting for us, or I don't know
Right.
where that sort of stands.
Well,
To
I
get it
mean,
going.
at this particular point, we did draw this little cheat sheet also. This actually came from our city secretary. Very helpful. Thank you, Stacey. Just giving some details about how subcommittees work, and just making sure that we all stay within within the parameters of a subcommittee. Yeah, and the idea would be that as soon as we get feedback from our other staff member who's drafting these items, we would provide those items obviously to this board also, but the subcommittee would be able to also look through that. And then the participants and the subcommittee member would be able to report back to this board with their findings also. And then we move from there.
So
obviously.
who is that contact person, or does Heidi know who that person is? that-
Yeah,
that she needed?
right. Kira McCradle. She's actually one of our. She's this independent contractor that we work with. She's actually worked with the city since, gosh, I want to say since 2019,
Okay.
and she has been tasked to put these particular items together for tree preservation and for landscape ordinance.
Okay.
So she works with us remotely.
Mhm.
But she is actively working on these right now. She did present some items to the previous board when we had some other members, and then also to city council, and they had provided some direction to her at that time.
So if we're all in agreement on this subcommittee after today's meeting, could she contact Kira directly, or does she need to contact you, or how do we
Yeah, she would
handle it?
She could just work directly with staff, with me. I mean, that wouldn't be a problem at all. For the most part, you'll be getting information from me, obviously, once we're ready to disperse that information, which we're hoping that by the end of August or beginning of September would be most ideal to be able to at least get a draft out for both these items. And at that time, again, we would obviously want to put something on our study session to get a summary from the subcommittee, to report back to this board, and go from there. For the
Okay.
most part, right?
And because it's one member, there is no open meetings requirement.
Correct.
That's the nice thing about a subcommittee. You don't have to worry about
Yeah, you
Any
could
of
meet
the-
here. I mean, we could always
anytime.
arrange
You don't have to
for-
post meetings. Don't have to do
Right.
any of this stuff.
Yeah, they could do it at a coffee shop, or you could meet here. That's totally. We'll figure a way to
Okay,
accommodate.
cool.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Are we gonna have, like, I know there's some existing ordinances with minimum standards right now. So we're gonna massage that ordinance.
I think it's all being overhauled. I think the
Okay.
whole thing is being overhauled.
With the advent of new development west side,
Mhm.
aren't most of those new subdivisions in
Plan developments.
plan development or homeowners association?
Both.
Probably both going on out there.
So a lot of times those plan developments already have landscape requirements outlined. This would not affect any existing plan developments unless those plan developments are silent. If those plan developments are silent on the landscaping, then we have to resort back to the comprehensive zoning ordinance landscaping requirements, regardless of whether we're talking about commercial development or residential development or multifamily development. But usually, I'd say a majority of those PDs have this outlined already.
Right. Well, I know there's several other homeowners associations in the city.
Oh, sure, absolutely, absolutely.
What's
And they're
the one up
tasked-
north?
Yeah, no, the homeowners associations are more tasked with, ensuring that the maintenance and everything is like the upkeep is absolutely, these items are kept up for the most part. Now, when they're out of compliance to the PD or they're out of compliance to the zoning ordinance, that's where the city can actually step in. And what I mean out of compliance is the site plan and landscape plan required, I don't know, so many trees along the right of way, and they've just decided to slash all the trees and the trees are gone. Then that's when the city would actually step in.
So
The
we're gonna
homeowners
make them
association-
replace a tree.
Yeah, if it's out of compliance, we would. Yeah, if it's out of compliance with the plan development, then that homeowner association is held accountable. Absolutely.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, the homeowner association is really there to maintain everything keep it watered, keep it maintained.
Well, I know, but there was, when they started, there was some landscaping requirement within that startup, for lack of a better term.
Oh, yeah. Are you talking about at the start of the PD
Yeah.
or? Yeah, I mean, there's definitely, I mean, the city has some landscaping requirements. They're not as strong as I think we'd like them to be at this point. So that's the whole point of us going through this process right now, is really to strengthen the landscaping requirements.
I would say even more so to just make it consistent with our city character.
Sure, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
So can we get Heidi, Linda's contact information so that
Yeah,
So
now
then
that, and
can-
again, depends on how y'all want to. At this point, right now, so the way, and again, I'm new to this whole creating the
Sure.
subcommittee also as well. But at this particular point, I guess the idea would be if we're going to create the subcommittee, the participants can be added, and I would say a participant is added just based on us reaching out to them or the
Yes.
sub. So it would actually be the board subcommittee member who would be you reaching out to Linda. Absolutely. So we need to provide that information to you. I don't see why we couldn't. Or if Linda's watching this right now, maybe she's sending me an email right now saying, "Hey, for
Changing
my
your phone
number."
number?
Yeah, I'm sure. I've
tight
been
on
getting, my
time.
phone is blowing up right now, so Linda might be watching this. I don't know.
So
Oh,
yeah,
go ahead, I'm sorry.
agreed. So I think if I understand this flow chart correctly too, we've addressed number one. We feel confident in our board subcommittee member. Thank you again. You will be then as the kind of head of the subcommittee determining the membership of that subcommittee, adding to it, recruiting volunteers, and although here it says there's no limit on the number of participants, I would say to use your discretion in terms of understanding the scope of the project and also the timeline, that this is a fairly quick timeline process.
And to that point, I was wondering if you wanted to have a draft in August, right? By the end of August, is there a chance you could report back to us maybe at our next meeting? Like how you're doing or what you've
mean,
done or something like that? Or, hey, I reached
would
out
think
to her,
so.
we met once, just to kind of let us know, is it,
Absolutely, sure.
or is you need more time? I don't know, so.
Well, let me reach out to everybody and get back. I will have something.
But
for
I think
you.
we'll probably continue to have this subcommittee as an item on the study
Yeah, we
agenda,
will.
would be my expectation, especially given that tight timeline.
Yeah, that's why.
Yeah, absolutely. And then again, you will be setting up the meetings, and then I think until we have probably even a finished, um, ordinance, we will probably include this on the agenda every time, and we can always say that there's no news to report. But I think given the turnaround, I would probably request it on each of the next ones, understanding you may not always have a huge update, but I think it should probably stand on our agenda for our study session.
I would envision it coming to us with the draft, us discussing it, adding our input, likely to be some changes. They'll have to go back and then report again, so.
Yeah, we want to have
Got
a
a
lot.
short
We want to have
timeline here.
transparency, a lot of transparency, as much transparency as we can have.
Do we,
The committee and us.
do we know if there is a city R2, R3 that already has a plan similar to this?
That is a great question. And in fact, if you review some of our past sessions, Kira presented to us a whole grid of several different cities, what their plans were, and all the considerations that went into what she's drafting currently.
Is that report somewhere in writing?
I can get
It
you that
is.
report.
Well, I'm thinking that would be really helpful for her,
That was my next question. Yeah, I was
Absolutely.
gonna have copies of that.
Absolutely.
because that would be a good starting point.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I feel like we have a plan going forward. Is there other things we need to discuss regarding the landscaping? And here, just to specify, here it's called a landscaping subcommittee, but just to be clear, there are two separate ordinances: a landscape ordinance and a tree preservation ordinance. And I think the understanding expectation is this subcommittee would be looking at both of those.
Absolutely.
All right. Anything else on that one?
Sounds good.
That sounds good.
All right. Thank you again for volunteering. So item 8.3, discuss agenda items for future planning and zoning commission consideration. We already addressed that briefly. Any other items, commissioners, that we need to have on a future agenda? All right. Seeing none, I believe that concludes us. It is at 7:00, so we will make it
Scurry
downstairs. And probably be a few minutes late there, but we'll do what we can. Thank you all. Welcome to the City of Farmers Branch Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. It is presently 7:06. I'd like to begin the meeting by thanking the commissioners for their service. Then we will move to citizen comments. This agenda item provides an opportunity for citizens to address the Planning and Zoning Commission on any matter that is not posted on the agenda. Anyone wishing to address the commission should complete a citizen comments registration form and submit it to the chair prior to the start of the meeting. There is a 3-minute time limit for each citizen to speak, with a reasonable limitation on speakers on any one topic or item, with a maximum of 15 total minutes on the same topic item. Anyone wishing to speak shall be courteous and cordial. The Planning and Zoning Commission is not permitted to take action on any subject raised by a speaker during citizen comments. However, the Planning and Zoning Commission may have the item placed on a future agenda for action, refer the item to the Director of Planning for further study or action, briefly state existing city policy, or provide a brief statement of factual information in response to the inquiry. I don't have any submissions for citizen comments, so therefore we will move to regular agenda items. Item C1, consider approval of the July 10th, 2023 Planning and Zoning Commission minutes and take appropriate action. Commissioners?
Well, do I have to, I brought up a change in the study session. Do I have to say it again here, or do I just note it?
You're welcome to note it now.
Yeah, it was just the changing up the part about the question related to the step analysis in the station area. So if we would note that change.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll move to approve the minutes of the last meeting with the changes identified.
Thank you, Roger.
Second.
A second. Any further discussion on the item? Seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All those in favor? All right, that is unanimous. Thank you all. We'll now move to item C2. Consider the request for a final plat approval of Elm Branch, Block 1, Lots 1 through 42 and 43X, located at 12877 Josie Lane, and take appropriate action. Thank you, Sarah.
Good evening, Commissioners. Sarah Bergman, lead planner. This item is a final plat request for 2.4 acres located at 12877 Josie Lane, shown on the screen. The site is Zone Plan Development District number 105, and a detailed site plan for townhome development was approved by City Council in March 2022. With this request, the applicant is proposing to replat the property into 42 new townhome lots and 1 common area lot to match the layout shown on the site plan. This is a view of the proposed final plat. Again, it's 42 new townhome lots, 1 HOA lot, and then easements necessary for development. There are a few new private streets proposed with this plat, and each townhome lot will have frontage onto one of those private streets, with cross-access easements providing connectivity throughout the site. The plat is consistent with all state and local requirements for platting. It does align with the approved site plan, and staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Any questions first for staff? All right, will we have any questions for the applicant? Okay. If the applicant wouldn't mind, step up, please state your name and address for the record.
Hello, Grant Bolding, 3121 Sunset Oak Street, Arlington, Texas.
Thank you.
Just want to thank you for this project here in Farmers Branch. I think we're all kind of excited. The only question I had was, do you have a sort of a general timeline as far as once you pull the basic building permits? Are you talking 12 months, 18 months? How long before?
7 months
Se-
to build.
Oh, 7 months. Okay.
Yep, and then that'll be the first release, and then 3 months after that will be finished. So in
Great.
total, 11, 12 months.
Great. Thank
Yep.
you. That's the only question I had.
Great.
Can you give us just a general idea of the potential asking prices on these properties? 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedroom, just
Yeah,
what you have in mind today.
they're 2 and 3 bedroom units, and they'll be all for rent. So the price per month rent is going to be somewhere between $2,800 to $3,500.
Thank you.
Any other questions for our applicant? All right, thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
If you want to, you can ask staff for him. Either
Yeah, I
way.
just had a question for staff real quick on that. The gentleman mentioned that these are going to be rental properties. As I recall, some time ago, these were going to be for sale, or am I thinking of a different property there on Valley View? Because
I'll be honest, I'd have to go back and look at what was presented with the site plan.
this
For
is the
this plat-
community. This is the community right near the Marshall's Barbecue. Right?
Correct. This
Okay,
plat does create individual lots, so they are able to be sold separately. I guess
I just have some recollection that they were going to be sold. I don't know. Is that, or am I just mistaken?
Well, I mean, it's dependent upon the person who actually owns the property, regardless whether they rent them or they sell them. I'm not sure. We'd have to, again, like Sarah was just mentioning, we'd have to go back and look to see.
It
what
just kind of
that
threw me
was.
because
Mhm.
I was thinking one thing, and he mentioned rentals, which made me think maybe I'm thinking of a different property or something. So,
sure.
because
And-
I
and
thought
we-
I'd recall seeing them online for a sale of 499,000 or so, but maybe I'm thinking of a completely different property, and that's why I'm asking the question. So.
Yeah, as far as any listing, that may be a question for the applicant. But this plat does create individual lots for each townhome. They can be sold, or the current owner can retain all of them and rent them.
I think it would be good to hear from the applicant, because I'm the same, I don't remember them being for rental, which is not a problem, but I'd be curious if that has changed, and if it has changed, what was the thinking, so could the applicant just speak to whether or not, were these always intended to be rental, or has that changed?
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
No, I've inherited it from. We're still the same company, but I've inherited it from another. So I have to find out.
So if I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, good. No, you're good. Good. No, that was it. That was he doesn't know the answer. So, yeah, he doesn't know the answer.
Okay. If they're going to be the rental properties, we've had some discussions surrounding security. Is there going to be you're going to be participating in the city's new security program? I think Commissioner Freilich had some knowledge of this with some of the apartment complexes around, some new developments associated with security. Are you familiar with any of that, or the
Not
city?
familiar with any of that. No.
I only bring it up because it's a rental property, much like a apartment complex.
Yeah, so we'll have a security package along with it as part of the rental feature.
Oh, there's active cameras or something in the neighborhood that's
It's like
recording,
Ring
or
doorbell,
I don't know.
basically.
Okay.
Very similar to that.
I'll just add to that the security policy that the city administers is specific to multifamily properties, and this is a single family development.
Thanks for the clarification, Sarah. And just a reminder too, that at this point, this is a plat. So in terms of the scope of what we're looking at in those boundaries.
Yeah, for me, it's just always I'm interested in market dynamics, and if there was a change from sale to rental, is there a market? Is there something happening in the market that drove you to do that? It's always interesting to know what that might be. But if
And I was just confused. Maybe I was thinking of a different property or something.
no, I remember the same thing. I don't remember these being as rental.
That's the only reason I brought it,
Yeah,
because I
yeah,
thought maybe
yeah.
I was thinking of a different community.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm Robin Van Werkhoven with the Nehemiah Company. We're the developers, 1818 Silver Martin Trail, Arlington, Texas. So both Grant and I, we are new to this project, right? There was a different group within our company that was developing it. But as far as I know, this was never going to be a, for sale. It's fee simple, it's single family as mentioned, but we're going to operate it as a for rent, a community. But it could be sold, each home could be sold individually, fee simple to, to an individual home buyer, at some point. But currently, the plan is to operate it as, a for rent community, which are, pretty popular right now. And there's a lot of these, purpose-built for rent communities all over the Metroplex that are meeting, a much needed.
Yeah, that's what I'm kind of getting to. I'm interested in the market dynamics.
Yes.
This is something that's becoming more prevalent, that developers are actually, instead of selling, they're keeping the properties and
Yeah, and we are, don't have to get into a lot, but we have two other projects that we are doing, in the DFW area that are, fee simple, just like this, purpose built for rent, and then we have some others that are more kind of the horizontal apartments, where it's one lot with X number of homes, 70, 80, 100 homes, and those are operated more like a traditional multifamily, operation. But these fee simple lots, they can be, sold off individually.
Great. Thank you for the
Yeah.
clarification.
How was this presented the first time? I think there's a big difference between, ownership as opposed to rental property. I'd be curious to know, how was this presented the first time? Was it presented as a rental project or single family home project?
Well, we can always go back and look to see how it was presented, but I mean the fact is that this is a plat that if the plat meets the requirements, it's a ministerial act. This board does have to act on it and it has to approve it. That's another thing too. I don't want to get too much into the weeds of what the specifics were when this was presented originally through the zoning process. I'm not even sure. I want to say that this is, Sarah, how old is this project? This was probably presented in,
Site plan was approved last year.
it was last year.
2022.
Okay, the zoning of it was
I
probably
believe 2021.
2021.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Again, we could always go back and look to see like how it was presented, but when these properties are subdivided like this, the property owner can absolutely rent the property or
I
they can
agree.
sell the property.
I
So
agree.
it's-
I was just curious as to how the plan was initially presented to the
Presented.
city.
Understood.
Was it presented as a rental property or
Yeah.
single family ownership property?
Yeah, I mean, we could go back, we could look and see, although, it's not, I don't think that necessarily would stop this plat from moving forward. It probably doesn't look very well on the folks who presented it, if they presented it a certain way.
Or the people
Right.
that approved it?
Or, correct. But I mean, again, we're really the case at hand right now is the plat at this particular point. So as long as they're meeting the requirements of the plat, that's really what we need to take action on at this moment.
Thank you again for the clarification. And again, as I mentioned upstairs in study session, we do have state regulations from the 86th legislature on how we deal specifically with plats, which do require, it's referred colloquially as a shot clock. So there is a timing around this. And it's my understanding through that state legislation, should we take no movement in our body presently, then it would be actually approved by right by our inaction.
That's correct.
Any further questions, clarifications?
So do we need to move to it, to have a move to stop the discussion, or can we just go ahead and move to approve?
I think you can, there are the actions available there in your
So
packet.
I would move to approve the final plat as presented.
Thank you so much. Anyone else?
I'll second it.
We have a second. Any further discussion on the matter? All right, all those in favor of the plat? All right, opposed? Duly noted. Thank you all, and we appreciate you coming to speak tonight on the plat. The next item on the agenda, item C3, is to consider the request for a final plat approval of Brookhaven College, Lot 1, Block 1, located at 3939 Valley View Lane, and take appropriate action. I will actually recuse myself for this portion of the meeting as my employer is Dallas College, who is issuing this plat, and we'll turn it over to my vice chair. Thank you, Roger.
Thanks, Commissioner. We'll hear from the city on this latest plat, and then somebody in the city will grab her when we're done here.
Good evening. This property is 191 acres located at 3939 Valley View Lane. And you're likely familiar with it as the Brookhaven College property. The zoning of this site is actually Planned Development District PD 20. And although the Brookhaven College has been there a long time, a site plan was approved in November 2021 for the new Early College Center building. And so this plat is related to that development. The entire property, and you would probably notice in the packet, the plat was 10 pages, but the only changes to what was already platted on this site are 2 new water easements that are being added, and that's what's shown on the screen here. The darker gray area is an easement that's being abandoned, and the hatched area is the new easement. And so those are the only changes on the plat. All other access and easements, property boundaries are remaining. And this plat is consistent with state and local requirements, so staff recommends approval. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and the applicant is here as well.
Thank you. Are there any questions from the commissioners? Any concerns or questions to bring up? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to.
I move we approve.
We have a motion to approve the final plat for Brookhaven College Lot 1, Block 1 by Commissioner Freilich.
I second that. Second to approve it.
We have a second from Heidi. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you very much. We can send out for Amber.
Appreciate that. And with that, that concludes our meeting for today. We'll take it to item D, adjournment. It is presently 7:23 p.m. Thank you all.